welfare and charity work is something that she tells him. And when May says that the narrator looks the same, okay, even though he's a full-grown man now, it suggests that there will be some sort of let's say tension in their relationship, because they are mixing up the past and the present at this point. So there will be some sort of tension between them, is something that we can understand, is indicated by this part. Okay. In her apartment, the narrator looks at May's bookshelf while she's cooking for him. She's cooking dinner for him, and he comes across a photo of her when she was younger. Okay, and he feels like that looks like how she looked when she visited his family in Calcutta. She primarily says that it was taken several years before, and explains that she sent it to Pradeep. Okay, so this picture actually was not taken when she visited Calcutta. It was taken even before that, many years before that, when she visited Pradeep. Sorry, she didn't visit Pradeep. She had sent this picture to Pradeep. Okay, she tells the narrator that she and Pradeep began writing to each other. So now remember, don't get confused. Pradeep went to London when he was a young boy of 8 years old, and then after some years they came back. All right. Now, after they came back, the reason why they came back is, again, there was the Second World War was happening, and that's why some of the places in London were bombed, and that is the reason why they came back to India. Now, when he came back after a few years, he was very young even when he came back. After a few years, specifically in the year 1959, okay, they started writing letters to each other. Okay, Pradeep and May Price started writing to each other, and at that point she was 19 years old and Pradeep was 27 years old. So they started writing, and that is when they exchanged pictures of each other, even though they saw each other when they were very young, right? When Pradeep left London all those years ago, May was a baby. So that's why they exchanged pictures, and she says this is the picture that she sent to Pradeep all those years ago. All right. And the day that he got this picture is the day when he told us the story of visiting London and May. Okay, so remember, he was standing in the park and telling people story of how he went to London. So that in fact, he did not go to London, but he had been talking to May, and this is the day that he received May's picture. And that's why he told the people that he actually went and visited May. All right. This is when Pradeep feels the narrator feels confused, because he is not sure of the relationship between Pradeep and May, and he realizes that even though he was very young when he met May and Pradeep together, he feels like there might have been things that he did not notice. The narrator insists to Thama that she was wrong about him. He always tries to present a better picture to Thama about Pradeep. And he's completely dismissive of all the gossips that are spreading about Pradeep. All right. And he once the narrator and his cousin Ela, that is where she's mentioned first, all right, discuss this when they are 16, and when Ela and her family visit. Now, Ela and her family are in London. Okay, they are with the Price family, and they come to visit the narrator's family at one point in time in Calcutta. All right. And when Ela comes out of the car, Thama is in awe of her beauty, but the narrator is disappointed to see, that his cousin who's come from London is actually wearing a sari. Like most girls in Bengal at that point, young girls also wear saris. So he's disappointed to see that, Ela is wearing a sari like everyone else. He was expecting to see an English sort of dressing in Ela. And the fact is that, even though before Ela came, the narrator was very excited to meet her, and he kept talking about her. But when she actually comes, he finds it very difficult to talk to her, and he's hiding. All right. And this shows us, okay, it shows us that he admired Ela before she came, before he actually saw her, because she was foreign, because she was exotic. Okay. And when he sees Ela in a sari, it suggests that, he's disappointed, because he does not expect to see that. He wanted to see something foreign, exotic. All right. And even Ela also remembers Trideep. Okay, even though they are very, very young, Ela also remembers Trideep, but the memory that they have of Trideep is very, very different. The narrator has a completely different recollection, and Ela has a different recollection of Trideep. They sit awkwardly for a minute or two. They walk and, you know, they sit awkwardly because they don't know what to talk. And the narrator asks Ela if she remembers how when they were children, the narrator and Roby, who's another cousin, used to find Pradeep and listen to his stories. All right. Ela insists that she remembers and she laughs. But the narrator can tell that, you know, she's not. But, you know, the narrator feels that she's lying. She does not really remember, but she's just laughing to be polite. And the narrator asks if she remembers all the strategies they used to get Pradeep to pull out photographs and talk about his year in London. Okay, so does she remember all that? Ela again says she remembers faintly, and, you know, she's confused. Why is he wanting to talk about these old memories when they were children? Why can't he talk about something present? Is something that confuses him. All right. And that is how it shows us that Ela and the narrator are fundamentally very, very different from each other. While the narrator is living in his past and he cherishes the memories that he has, Ela, on the other hand, does not see how important they are. Okay. And this shows the closeness that they have with Pradeep. The narrator is very close with Pradeep, and that's why he wants to fondly remember the memories with Pradeep. But Ela, on the other hand, does not have the same feelings. The narrator asks Ela, you know, how can you forget? And she responds by asking him, how does he remember? Okay, how can you remember such small things is what she asks. The narrator tells the reader that this isn't even a question because Ela will never understand what Pradeep's stories meant to the narrator. How important they were to the narrator is something that Ela will never understand. Okay, since Ela was also someone who traveled very much as a child, she was familiar with the world. Okay, but the narrator, what is important is that he never left his Gole Park. Okay, he never left Bengal. So he did not know about a world outside of Bengal. And that's why he was so attracted to the stories that Trideep told him, his uncle told him. Why? Because Trideep had traveled to London, and when he talked about London and all those things foreign and exotic, that is the only way in which the narrator could see those things. All right, so that is the connection that he has. And when Pradeep used to tell him stories, he used to point out places in his atlas and tell him, okay, so that all that really, really attracted the narrator. And despite the age difference that they have, the relationship between them is meant on understanding. All right. And that is why these memories are extremely important for the narrator. It's the only way that the narrator learns about the world around him. He has no other way. In contrast, Ela has the freedom to, you know, experience these experiences because she is traveling herself and she does not need to these stories to take her anywhere. All right. The narrator then, you know, keeps talking about wanting to see Cairo, the place. All right. And Ela realizes that you know, she's not interested, so she stops listening to him. And suddenly Ela snaps her fingers and says that, you know, the ladies room is on the far side of the departure round in Cairo. Okay, she talks about how she went to Cairo, and she talked about how the bathroom is on the other side. All right. So the narrator at this point thinks that, you know, for Ela, the world, you know, when he is describing Cairo, he's describing the things that he's read and he's heard from Pradeep. But for Ela, it's only about the airport and the departure lounge and where the bathroom is. So he feels like, you know, to Ela, the world is a departure lounge. That means she's just traveling because she has to. She's not enjoying that experience. All right. And she understands that, you know, because probably as a child she had to travel a lot, these bathrooms were the only things that she remembers. All right. And he recognizes that they were probably the only constant things. Everything else was always changing around her, and probably these bathrooms are the only constant things that he has around her. All right. And that's why he suddenly realizes that maybe Ela's life is not so ideal as he had thought it to be. Okay, so we'll stop here and we'll continue in the next video.